On a crisp, moonlit night, as shadows danced along the manicured lawns of a sprawling estate, the world of Michael Townsend, a self-made millionaire with a taste for solitude, was about to take an unexpected turn. Driving up the winding path to his mansion, the hum of his luxury car's engine was the only sound that accompanied him, until something unusual pierced the night silence. Just as he pulled into the grand driveway of his meticulously maintained mansion, Michael's ears caught a faint, distressed cry. It was barely audible over the last whispers of his car engine fading into the stillness. Curious and concerned, he paused, his hand lingering on the ignition key, his senses sharpening to trace the source. The noise wasn't from inside the house. It echoed softly from somewhere near the edge of his property, muffled yet unmistakable. With a mixture of apprehension and urgency, Michael stepped out of his vehicle. The estate's security lights cast long shadows on the ground, stretching towards the gate like fingers. There, against the brick wall bordering his property, was a small, hunched figure. A young woman shivering in the autumn chill, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her face was hidden beneath a mess of tangled, dirty hair, making her seem almost part of the night itself. "Hey," Michael called out, his voice firm to mask his surprise. "Are you okay?" His words hung in the cool air, and the figure flinched, shrinking further into the shadows as if trying to disappear into the wall itself. It took her a moment, but slowly she lifted her head, her eyes catching the faint light from the street lamp. They were wide, bloodshot, rimmed with exhaustion and fear, but amidst the vulnerability, there was a spark of defiance, of a survivor's resilience. "Leave me alone," she muttered, her voice hoarse, barely a whisper carried away by the night breeze. Michael hesitated, struck by her words. She wasn't the type to ask for help, that much was clear. She looked like someone who'd been through too much and had too little, yet refused to admit defeat. "You're freezing," Michael observed, taking a step closer, his voice softer this time. "Let me help you." Her laughter was hollow, bitter. "Help me? You think I'm some charity case? A project for you to fix?" Her sharp words stung him with their intensity. Michael frowned, unsure of how to respond. It was true. People like him, the wealthy elite, often thought they could solve problems with money, as if it were a salve for any wound. But this was different. Something about her, about the desperation he sensed just beneath her fierce independence, made it impossible for him to just walk away. "Look," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I'm not trying to insult you. I just don't want you to freeze to death out here. It's cold, and it's late. You can leave whenever you want, no strings attached." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze intense and probing. Then, with a reluctant nod, she whispered, "Fine." The silence between them felt heavy as Michael led her up the driveway to his mansion. As they reached the threshold, she paused, her eyes widening in disbelief at the grand foyer before her. The chandelier overhead cast a soft golden glow, illuminating the marble floors and the sweeping staircase that curled elegantly upwards. "You live here?" she asked, her tone dripping with a mix of awe and disbelief. Michael nodded. "Yeah, I do. Come on, there's a bathroom down that hall. You can take a hot shower and I'll leave some clothes outside the door." She looked at him, suspicion etched into every line of her face. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, a hint of curiosity behind her guarded expression. Michael paused, searching for an honest answer. "Let's just say I've been in a bad place before," he said finally. "And someone helped me. Consider this me paying it forward." She didn't respond immediately, but something in her expression softened. Without another word, she disappeared down the hallway, the door closing softly behind her. In that hour before she reappeared, Michael prepared a simple meal, unsure of her preferences but hoping that anything warm might comfort her. When she returned, her transformation was startling. Cleaned of the grime and dirt, her true features emerged. High cheekbones, smooth skin, and eyes that held stories yet to be told. The oversized clothes he had provided hung loosely on her, but she wore them with an unexpected grace. "Feel better?" Michael asked, trying to mask his surprise at her changed appearance. She nodded, her gaze flickering to the table set with food. "Is that for me?" "Yeah, sit, eat," he invited warmly. She hesitated, then slowly took a seat, her movements deliberate. She reached for the bread first, tearing off a small piece and nibbling it cautiously, as if half expecting it to be snatched away. "What's your name?" Michael asked, breaking the heavy silence that had settled between them. She glanced up, her guarded expression melting away slightly. "Sarah." "Sarah," he repeated, offering a gentle smile. "I'm Michael." She nodded, focusing back on the food, but Michael could tell her walls were starting to come down, bit by bit. He watched her for a moment, a mix of curiosity and compassion growing inside him. "Why were you out there?" he ventured gently. Her hand froze mid-reach for the soup ladle, and she looked up, her eyes suddenly brimming with a pain so raw it almost took his breath away. "Let's just say life hasn't been kind to me," she said, her voice thick with unspoken stories. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and for the first time, Michael felt a pang of something more profound than curiosity. A desire to understand, to learn more about this mysterious woman who had stumbled into his life on this cold, moonlit night. Inside the grandeur of Michael's mansion, Sarah steps into a world far removed from the harsh realities of the streets. As they cross the threshold, the opulence is overwhelming. The marble floors shine under the ornate chandelier, and artworks that likely cost more than a small house adorn the walls. Sarah's eyes widen, her gaze darting around the lavish foyer, taking in the stark contrast to her daily struggles. "Must be nice," she comments dryly, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and resentment, highlighting the vast divide between her world and Michael's. Michael, sensing the tension her words carry, chooses not to respond directly to her comment. Instead, he guides her down a long hallway, richly carpeted and lined with grand portraits, towards a guest bathroom. "You can freshen up in here," he offers, pointing to a door adorned with intricate carvings. "I'll leave some clothes for you outside the door." His tone is gentle, an attempt to bridge the gap that her sarcastic remark has widened. Sarah pauses at the door, her hand on the knob, and turns to Michael with a look of suspicion. "Why are you helping me?" she asks, her eyes searching his for any hint of ulterior motives. Michael meets her gaze steadily, the sincerity in his eyes clear. "I've been lucky in my life," he admits, "and I believe in paying that forward. You don't have to stay, but it's cold outside, and no one should have to endure that." Reluctantly, Sarah nods and enters the bathroom, closing the door softly behind her. The sound echoes slightly in the quiet hall, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts. He wonders about her story, about what series of events led her to his gate on such a cold night. In the bathroom, Sarah stands for a moment, her reflection staring back at her from a mirror that likely cost more than she could earn in several months. She touches the marble countertop, half expecting it to transform before her eyes. The warmth of the room, heated floors radiating up through the soles of her worn shoes, feels alien yet comforting. With a deep, uncertain breath, she begins to shed the dirt-caked layers of her street life, each piece of clothing hitting the floor with a weight heavier than fabric should hold. Outside, Michael prepares a simple meal, aware that the comforts he takes for granted are worlds away from what Sarah has known. He sets the table with care, placing a bowl of hot soup and a soft, freshly baked roll at one setting, and waits, listening for the sound of the bathroom door to reopen. The transformation when Sarah reappears is startling. Cleaned up and dressed in clothes that hang a little loose on her frame, she looks younger, less worn by the world. Her hair, free from grime, frames her face in waves, and there's a slight, uncertain shift in her posture. A guarded hope, perhaps, as she sees the food laid out for her. Feel better? Michael asks as she approaches the table, his voice light, trying to ease the palpable tension. Yeah, Sarah replies, her voice softer, less defensive. She sits, her movements still cautious, as if the chair might be pulled from under her at any moment. Michael watches her, a silent question in his eyes, but he holds back, giving her the space to come to terms with this unexpected kindness. As she starts to eat, her initial hesitation gives way to tentative enjoyment, the warmth of the meal seeping into her bones. Michael sits opposite, sipping tea, the space between them filled with unspoken stories. His offer of a night's shelter stands, a simple kindness in the face of her complex world. But as the night deepens, it's clear that this is just the beginning, and the layers of Sarah's past are yet to unfold. In the warmth of Michael's expansive and luxuriously appointed kitchen, a transformative scene unfolds as Sarah emerges from the bathroom, her previous hardships washed away, revealing the resilient woman beneath the grime of street life. Dressed in clean, albeit slightly oversized clothing provided by Michael, she tentatively joins him at a table adorned with simple yet nourishing foods. As they dine, the air around them fills with the clinking of cutlery and the soft murmur of small talk, gradually melting the ice of their initial encounter. Michael, sensitive to her vulnerability, steers their conversation with care, revealing bits of his own life, which encourages Sarah to share glimpses of her tumultuous past. Each story she tentatively offers unveils layers of pain laced with survival, and Michael listens with a deepening respect, his responses thoughtful, fostering a fragile but growing bond. The meal, simple but heartfelt, becomes more than just food. It's a bridge between two disparate worlds, gently guiding Sarah and Michael towards a mutual understanding and respect, setting a foundation for trust, and perhaps, in time, a lasting friendship. As the evening deepens, the flickering light from the fireplace casts long shadows across the room, mirroring the growing intensity between Michael and Sarah. Their conversation, once a cautious exchange of pleasantries, now delves into deeper, more treacherous waters. Sarah, her defenses lowered by the genuine concern she sees in Michael, hesitates before revealing a piece of her past that intertwines tragically with his own. "I've seen your father before, years ago," she admits, her voice a whisper laden with unease. This revelation jolts Michael, a pang of shock coursing through him, sparking a mixture of disbelief and dread. Compelled by the need to understand the full extent of his father's shadowy legacy, Michael finds himself standing at the threshold of his father's old office, a place he hasn't stepped foot in since the old man's death. The room is steeped in silence, heavy with the dust of secrets long buried. With trembling hands, he unlocks the desk drawer, where he discovers a ledger, its pages filled with meticulous entries that reveal a horrifying array of illicit business practices and ruthless exploitation. Each entry, each name and figure, uncovers more of the hidden darkness his father had veiled behind a facade of respectability. The air thickens around him as he flips through the pages, each turn revealing more layers of deceit. The weight of the truth bears down on him, the realization that his father, the man he once idolized and emulated, had built his empire on the broken backs of others. Michael's heart races, his mind reels, and the room seems to close in on him as he confronts the undeniable evidence of years of exploitation that funded the luxury he grew up in. Stricken with a profound sense of betrayal, Michael leaves the office with the ledger tucked under his arm, a damning testament to his father's true nature. He returns to Sarah, who waits in the living room, her posture tense, sensing the shift in him even before he speaks. "Everything you said. It's true," he confesses, his voice heavy with grief and anger. The pages of the ledger flutter in his hand, a symbol of the legacy he must now reckon with. Sarah watches him, her eyes reflecting a sorrow born of empathy, having known too well the pain of being one of the many caught under his father's ruthless ambitions. Together, they sit in the dim light, the room around them too small to contain the enormity of the truth laid bare between them. Michael, overwhelmed by the revelations of his father's misdeeds, and Sarah, vindicated yet hollowed by the confirmation of her darkest experiences. This climax not only exposes the sins of the past, but also sets the stage for the choices Michael must make. Will he continue to live in the shadow of his father's dark legacy? Or will he forge a new path, one that seeks redemption and justice for those harmed by his family's greed? The answer lies in the heavy silence between them, a silent pact formed in the flickering shadows as they contemplate the ruins of a legacy and the possibility of its redemption. In a dimly lit office, Michael confronts Richard Kane, his father's former business partner, presenting the damning ledger as undeniable evidence of their illicit dealings. As Kane's facade crumbles under pressure, he confesses to the corrupt practices that built their empire, revealing truths that shatter Michael's understanding of his heritage. Compelled by a newfound resolve, Michael steps into the public eye, exposing the depth of his father's corruption at a packed press conference. The revelation sends shockwaves through the media, drawing both criticism and commendation, while also igniting a powerful movement. Victims, once silenced by fear and oppression, begin to come forward, their voices uniting in a demand for justice and accountability. This cascade of confessions and testimonials transforms Michael's personal quest into a public crusade, reshaping his legacy from one of inherited wealth to one of deliberate moral action. As the world watches, Michael navigates the complex aftermath of his revelations, committed to correcting the wrongs of the past and fostering a future built on transparency and integrity. In the wake of tumultuous revelations and a media storm, Michael channels his resources into a force for change, establishing a foundation dedicated to aiding those affected by his father's unscrupulous business practices. Sarah, once a victim of these schemes, becomes instrumental in the foundation's operations, bringing her unique insights and resilience to the forefront of their mission. Together, they work tirelessly to provide support and restitution to those ensnared by the past's shadows. As the sun sets on a city that has witnessed their remarkable transformation, Michael and Sarah find a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the skyline. There, amidst the sprawling vista, they share a reflective conversation about their journey from the depths of despair to the cusp of a hopeful new era. They acknowledge the pain and challenges they faced, but also recognize the profound growth and understanding that emerged from their shared experiences. This moment of closure and reflection solidifies their bond and reaffirms their commitment to not only mend the wounds of the past, but also to forge a path forward, illuminated by the lessons learned and the promise of a better tomorrow. If this story of transformation and redemption resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales.